Okay, now on to Palantir. President Trump. Oh, wait, here we go. President Trump, this is recent news over the weekend. Trump has contracted Palantir, Peter Thiel's Palantir, to create a master database on every American citizen. Oh, the very thing that Alex Jones has been warning about for 20 plus years. Now it's Trump and Peter Thiel, who he's ran cover for. Remember when Fuentes was on with Alex Jones the other day? And Alex is like, oh, they're not that big. They're not that big of a deal. They're patriots, actually, blah, blah, blah. See Through It All posted that clip. I'm going to have to look at that real fast and find that. Jones was sweeping for Peter Thiel and Trump and J.D. Vance. New York Times, Trump taps Palantir to compile data on all Americans. That's the latest news now. Trump taps Palantir to create master database on every American. The same company tracking quote-unquote terrorist abroad is now tracking us at home.
One thing, arguably, in the book.
Here's the Jewish CEO, Alex Karp, talking about how they're also going to be combining all the medical data as well. It's going to be like China, social credit score, everything about you in one big database. That database has existed for a long time. It has, but this is an expansion of it, and it's with a private Zionist company. That's the difference.
That a few people get wealthy, and if you said platitudes that were obviously stupid, you could...
You're getting wealthy off of killing Palestinians with Palantir kills Palestinians with their AI and technology.
Oh.
You're killing my family in Palestine.
Yeah. And, you know...
Where are you? How do you sleep at night?
Well, if you...
Shame on you.
Do you want to hear my answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So, I think the primary cause of death to Palestinians... Okay, do you want to hear the answer, or do you want to yell? Well, you don't want to hear an answer? Obviously. So the primary source of death in Palestine is the fact that Hamas has realized that there are millions and millions of useful idiots that will...
Not wanting Palantir to assist Israel in the slaughter of Palestinians means you're a useful idiot. Okay.
Justifying it because of Hamas or anyone else.
Can we get security up there?
Mostly terrorists, that's true. She believes I'm evil. I believe she's an unwitting product of an evil force, Hamas. That she unwittingly is part of their strategy, that she is a product. And the most important thing, arguably, in the book, or what Palantir, or what you could learn, is do not become a product of an ideology that sounds sensible.
You mean like Zionism? Here he is. It's funny that Trump is hiring this guy to have a database on all Americans, and here he is bragging that Palantir and their software single-handedly stopped the far right in Europe. Wasn't it Palantir that also helped round up January 6ers too?
Well, we built PG, which single-handedly stopped the rise of the far right in Europe. We built Foundry, which was used to distribute the COVID vaccine and saved millions of lives globally. We built what we call
stopping nationalist groups. They were behind COVID and the rollout of the vaccine in Operation Warp Speed. Database on all Americans. Working, like Peter Thiel said, deferring to Israel with their weapons.
Multi-constellation, what's often called the digital kill chain. And they're category-defining products. So when you deliver these products to the market, just honestly, people say this isn't going to exist, this isn't valuable, but then it changes the market. And then the market is the Palantir market. Now, that doesn't mean everyone in the world is going to buy our product, but it means most of the sensible people in the world are going to buy from the category we defined. Look, we built PG, which...
Bragging about stopping the far right. Here's Alex Karp, CEO of Palantir, with Yossi Farrow, a Chabadnik that his whole shtick is going around and giving everybody, wrapping them with the Teflon, hanging out with his Jewish buddy. Peter Thiel, the internet was allowed because it was a safe space where violence could be contained. Everybody with their...
Which the ideas on the internet...
Digital ghettos.
Which the ideas on the internet translate into reality every now and then. You know, what happens on Twitter or X doesn't always stay there. Most of the time it stays there, so it feels like it's this extremely angry, but every now and then it still translates to the real world. So the internet, you could say, was allowed because it was sort of a safe space. It was a place where the sort of violence could be contained.
So they created the internet, and it's probably dead internet theory. Most of the engagement's fake, so they can keep you on the reservation, distracted, controlled, pumping you with disinformation and kosher conspiracies, stopping any real world activism or organization. Got you following all of these Pied Piper, Judas Goat, disinformation agents.
And then even there, probably not totally, and even there, people felt it was like maybe too much. But yeah, which
maybe too much freedom online. Palantir ran Operation Warp Speed.
Two people that many people know in this room were a big part of that. But it was the teamwork with industry, academia, and the government that really made us successful.
Cooming and consuming. That's funny.
Just self-report. The reason why I'm here.
Half of the JQ influencers are probably controlled op. If they're talking about kosher conspiracies, if they're promoting Abrahamic religions, if they are huge Russia shills, good chance on all of them.
They were such a great teammate. And Julie and Aaron, two people that many people know in this room, were a big part of that. And I'm going to walk my way through that in a moment because I just enjoyed what they did. And I wouldn't be here if that wasn't a part of their persona. And I'll articulate that in a little bit. So I spent 40 years in the Army. I did 2 in the National Guard while I was finishing college, and I did 38 years of active duty. I started out as an infantry officer and begrudgingly went to...
Yeah, that's right. Whitney Webb has been all over the Palantir thing. So is Derek Brose. Derek Brose was on talking about it as well. And lo and behold, Trump taps them to do the database, exactly what Whitney was warning about. And running Operation Warp Speed, right?
Become a...
as well as a whole litany of a whole bunch of other Unit 8200 Israeli-connected tech companies.
Logistics officer. Turned out, very lucky move for me. I was an average infantry officer. I was a great logistician. My self-reporting. But truthfully, I think, results...
Okay, we get the point. Warp Speed. We don't have to watch that whole clip. Alex Jones, here, let's play this. First, let's play the See Through It All clip of Fuentes. I want to recap on that. Fuentes eviscerates Zionist shill Alex Jones on Palantir. Facial recognition so they know which Palestinians to blow up with drones. I hope in this clip is where Jones goes, oh, they're a small company. People hype them up too much. They're no big deal. Don't worry about it.
It really gives me a lot of concern. They put bombs in the pagers, and they're involved in procurement for the U.S. military. Palantir, all these new generation defense contractors, they're all over Unit 8200. They're all over Ehud Barak over there in Israel. It's filled with shadowy corporations that are funneling their technology into our country. We're going to trust them. And
I'll say this about Palantir. It's all really the hot thing to say it runs everything, and it's so big. It's tiny compared to the other AI.
They're no big deal. Don't worry about Palantir, Goyam. They're no big deal. He's totally running cover for Trump, Elon, Peter Thiel, J.D. Vance, Alex Karp.
Into our country, we're going to trust them. And
I'll say this about Palantir. It's all really the hot thing to say it runs everything, and it's so big. It's tiny compared to the other AI companies and defense stuff. It is trying to...
It's one of the biggest tech companies and fastest growing. You fucking fraud.
Make a run at getting a bunch of big contracts, and so
they're patriots.
What it does. My point is, compared to all these other big companies, it's tiny, and that's why you see the left attacking it a bunch too. So I see a weird alliance.
You're a left. You're aligning with the left if you talk about Palantir. They're no big deal. Go back to sleep, Goyam. You're just on the left if you talk about Palantir. We see your little tricks, Jones.
Compared to all these other big companies, it's tiny, and that's why you see the left attacking it a bunch too. So I see a weird alliance with kind of the anti-Israel folks and the left with the Muslims. And
you're with the Muslims if you talk about Palantir.
Palantir. It's the big thing. I mean, it's
the guy that's been warning about databases and Operation Warp Speed and COVID and stopping the far right, and he's running cover. He is a fucking agent of this. What else do you need to know? If he was legit, he would be screaming from the rooftops about Palantir, but instead we get this bullshit.
Are tiny compared to the other stuff.
But what Palantir is a privatization of the surveillance state. They work for the CIA. They come from the CIA.
What I've seen is Palantir has been trying to reform the government contracting process.
They're trying to make it more competitive and more efficient, but what they're doing is they're funneling all of our data into the government. Clearview AI is part of that suite. They ripped everybody's faces off of Facebook. Palantir's involved in Gaza doing facial recognition so they know which Palestinians to blow up with drones.
Oh, we got to go to break.
Go to break. Let's not talk about the drone. He's like, oh, okay. Oh, go to break. Imagine that.
Hour coming up.
He laughs. He knows.
I got a bunch of stuff out.
And he comes back from the break and talks about something else. So many times I've seen Jones goes, oh, we had to stop it. There's a hard break for the what's it called. I've been watching Jones for years. He'll have on some shitty guest like Roseanne talking about the stupidest bullshit you've ever heard. And he'll go, this is so good. Well, skip the break. We're skipping the break. This is such, she's cooking. This is fire. Let's go. Keep going, Roseanne. Tell us about how the Muslim Brotherhood controls Hollywood. Keep going.
I want to hit, and we can talk about Israel as much as you want, because at the end of the day, the more Israel gets persecuted, the more powerful it gets. That's a little part of the plan. So I think what Grok's doing is, Elon with Grok is really good.
Grok is interesting. I'm more concerned about this suite of companies, though, like Palantir, which is they're feeding all of the
Bring it
data
back, Nick.
over to
Good job.
Palantir so they can manipulate it with algorithms. And they're everywhere. They're looking at the wastewater during the COVID pandemic.
But you're back to this. I've looked at this.
You're back to this. What are you doing? I went to break so you could stop talking about Palantir. What are you doing back to this? He said, I'll let you finish. We'll go there. He's seething. Stop talking about Palantir. You hear that?
With algorithms.
You went back to this. I told you they're no big deal, and you're a Muslim if you talk about Palantir.
Where they're looking at the wastewater during the COVID pandemic.
But you're back to this. I've looked at the scale of Palantir.
Yeah, I already told you. I see the chat. They're a mom and pop surveillance company.
DeepSeek and all these others and ChatGPT. And I'm not like defending Peter Thiel. I'm just saying.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
It's like I get it from the liberals and the.
You're a liberal.
Israel obsessed, whatever you want to call it. So just Palantir.
You mean people rightfully criticizing Israel and Palantir? They're the left. They're Muslims. Oh, they're obsessed. Blah, 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 blah.
Obsessed. Whatever.
You're obsessed with globalists. You're obsessed with Chi-Coms. You're obsessed with Muslims. You're obsessed with NATO. You're obsessed with a litany of other bullshit distraction nonsense.
Call it. So just Palantir.
They have an enemies list. They have an enemies list of 2 to 3 million people that they've identified as potential violent extremists. And this is being run by Alex Karp. Alex Karp said his biggest fear is that Christian...
Stream down on Rumble. Well, guess who invested in Rumble? Peter Thiel. Imagine that. What, did I mess up the algorithm? Too many mentions of Palantir and Peter Thiel's Rumble shut me down? Yeah, Peter Thiel did help start Rumble. And they got this thing up on Rumble now, Tether, their new crypto that's associated with Howard Lutnick. Are we down still? Odyssey's up. We're on Odyssey. We're on X. Imagine that. I was thinking should I put Palantir in the title? Because maybe Rumble will suppress me or hurt me. Okay, we're back.
Nationalists will take over the government and throw him out of a window, defenestrate him because he's Jewish. He's running Palantir. Palantir has an enemies list of 3 million people.
So Alex Karp doesn't like you.
I don't think so. I don't know him, but probably not.
But you don't want to throw him out of a window.
I don't want to throw him out of a window, but I don't think he should control Palantir. I don't think he should control military procurement. That's my concern. And Peter Thiel, I mean, he's a suspicious character also. He says he's a Christian, but he's a gay man. He says he's a Christian, but he's really involved with this René Girard, who's sort of an interesting philosopher who's involved with a lot of the Straussians out there at the Hoover Institute. So these are two guys I don't...
Yeah, Karp's got a degree, basically, in classical Western civilization.
But what is Western to these people? According to Harry Jaffa, Western means protecting Israel. And that's who they're all.
And Van der Leyden said that too. We'll be right back in 60 seconds. Stay with us. Back to Israel.
Back to Israel. Good clip, see through it all. Alex Jones knows that Trump is beholden to technocracy in Israel. He doesn't care. Bill Cooper was right, says 7 Cs. And you know how I saw this? Sam Tripoli shared it. What's up, Sam? Sam, you realizing Jones is what I've been saying he is for years? Nice retweet, Sam Tripoli. Very proud of you for this, by the way. Let's hear Jones, Fat Jones, talks about Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, the white hats being persecuted by the deep state.
But there's so much to this, and people are just like, whoa, my gosh, he's FBI informant. Huh? But you see that bear? It's got brown fur, and I saw it pooping in the woods. Did you? I saw a salmon in the water. I saw a bird flying in the sky. The whole country's run by this. The intelligence agencies run almost everything. And what they're trying to shut down, they don't run. But the globalists are too arrogant to ever admit that. But now they're starting to get it. Oh, Peter Thiel's not going along with us. He's secretly behind Trump again. We'll just blow his cover. He also wears a hat with the FBI. Well, he doesn't wear it. He has a general's. Isn't
Peter Thiel like Bilderberg Group too? Jones just hand waved that. That's not a big deal. It's like when Jared Kushner and Pompeo in Trump's first term went to Bilderberg. That's not a scandal. They're infiltrating Bilderberg. They're taking over Bilderberg. This dude will spin a fucking sweater with his bullshit.
Epaulette in the NSA, and so does Elon Musk, but not at the NSA. Musk is an officer. You think they let people put 10,000 satellites in orbit and run giant heavy boosters, and that guy isn't a crossover where they're transferring government power to corporations? Elon Musk is a officer, deputy in command of Space Force. And Trump was setting up a new agency so he could put his people in it because they blocked him in all the other branches. So
Peter Thiel is on the steering committee of Bilderberg, huh?
Elon Musk is the deputy head of Space Force. Peter Thiel is one of the top people at the National Security Agency. And that's a fact, and that's the real world. So there you go, Business Insider. Wow, you really scooped it. You really exposed it.
So he does know.
Amazing. Wow, we're really impressed.
So he knows it, and look at how that aged. Okay, so I talked about this a couple streams ago. Mad Crab made this video about technocrats taking over the United States. Remember I did the show with Derek Bros called like Zionist technocrats?
And never really.
We're going to skip. This is 25 minutes. We're going to skip just to the Palantir part. We'll skip over the mold bug Curtis Yarvin, who's like some philosopher associated with this stuff, and get just straight to the Palantir part. Maybe right here. This is very disturbing and well done.
Political circles, a new video now is the birth of the American technocracy. We're watching an elected government hollowed out from the inside, while billionaires, algorithms, and unelected experts quietly take the wheel. But technocracy isn't just a Black Mirror, far-off sci-fi idea. It's actually been a political project since at least the early 20th century. Howard Scott, who was the founder of the Tentacle Alliance in New York, once argued that society should be managed by engineers instead of politicians, people who could use data and science to rationally control the production, labor, and resources of the country.
It's only a question of time, and a very short time at that. Because every new advance on the technical field is producing more and more with less and less. And how are you going to distribute the great production of abundance of this technological complex to a social system that is back in the days of George Washington? That's the problem. And they cannot meet it under this system. The most common
Western civilization. Thiel and his network architect of all of this.
J.D. Vance believes essentially
Surveillance app.
would all agree on that principle.
If Curtis Yarvin and Nick Land wrote the playbook, then Peter Thiel is basically the architect of all of this. He is quietly rewiring the nervous system of the U.S. government as we speak. And before he was a billionaire, before he was building massive surveillance apparatuses, Peter Thiel was just a college libertarian with a newsletter. Back in the 80s, Thiel co-founded a student paper at the Stanford called the Stanford Review. He used it to rail against political correctness, celebrate Ayn Rand, and champion the usual libertarian talking points. But he also co-authored a book called The Diversity Myth, which downplayed racism and argued that efforts to increase diversity were eroding Western civilization. Thiel and his network argued that democratic pluralism and egalitarianism leads to institutional decay, replacing it with a streamlined management system that relies on compliance instead of inclusion. But somewhere along the way, the libertarian ideal of personal freedom mutated or maybe just peeled back into something much darker. Thiel's politics stopped being about liberty and started being about control. In 2009, he infamously wrote, "I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible." And he wasn't just being edgy, because he spent the last 15 years turning that belief into an actual political program. His company Palantir was seeded with CIA funding to do the mass surveillance of the U.S. government that they couldn't legally do after 9/11. It was literally built to resurrect a banned program called Total Information Awareness, except this time run privately with no oversight.
Remember Total Information Awareness? Their patch, their seal had the like Illuminati all-seeing eye on it. That's basically what Palantir is. And Jones says, "Oh, you're just a leftist if you talk about Palantir. You're obsessed with Jews, and you're basically Muslim Brotherhood. You're with the Muslims and the leftists if you talk about Palantir."
Or sunlight whatsoever.
No foreign nation, no hacker should be able to shut down our networks, steal our trade secrets, or invade the privacy of American families, especially our kids. So we're making sure our government integrates intelligence to combat cyber threats, just as we've done to combat terrorism.
Today, Palantir is integrated deeply into the U.S. government infrastructure. It powers police departments, intelligence agencies, immigration enforcement, and even battlefield targeting systems.
Oh, look, it's the tip of the spear. Alex Jones, tip of the spear. PsyOps. Not Psy Group. Special Operations Command. Alex Jones down in Florida. That's who's working with Trump. What do you know?
And under Trump, Palantir's role expanded dramatically. In fact, it helped ICE track and deport immigrants, even building a program called Immigration OS, which is an operating system for managing.
Peter Thiel was one of the top investors and early investors in Facebook as well.
Mass removal of human beings from the United States. At the same time, Palantir signed a strategic partnership with the Israeli Ministry of Defense. They now help coordinate airstrikes and battlefield analytics using AI for the IDF in Gaza.
So what do you think about the use of artificial intelligence, or lavender, by the IDF in identifying Hamas targets? And secondly, do you agree with Elon Musk about that the population decline is a risk for humanity?
Look, I'm not, without going into all the, I'm not on top of all the details of what's going on in Israel because my bias is to defer to Israel.
This is a man who, in his college years, once championed individual liberty and is now selling predictive law enforcement and digital targeting systems to foreign governments literally engaged in genocide. But Thiel isn't just selling surveillance, he's replacing the back end of the U.S. government. His VC firm backed a company called Ramp, which uses AI to analyze corporate spending. Ramp is now quietly in talks with the General Service.
Also, Trump just tapped Palantir to do some like investigate mortgage fraud or something like that too. Nationwide.
his admission to take over a federal government's $700 billion smart pay program, essentially the government's internal credit card system. And if that goes through, Ramp, and by extension Peter Thiel, will be literally managing the financial infrastructure of federal agencies. And this isn't just about the companies. Thiel has spent years placing his people throughout the second Trump administration. By 2025, at least 18 former Palantir staffers, Thiel Foundation fellows, and PayPal Mafia affiliates were embedded deeply inside Trump's agencies in the new Department of Government Efficiency.
Lutnick spoke at the World Economic Forum. That's the new Commerce Secretary, the guy that brought Trump to Chabad Lubavitch.
Also known as Doge. So the guy who used to argue that against big government is now basically running the entire thing from the inside, except with better branding and zero accountability, with a direct line to the White House. Because Peter Thiel's revolution isn't just rhetorical, it's administrative. It's about replacing the slow public mechanisms of the government with fast private infrastructure that nobody voted for. He is quite literally replacing the nervous system of the U.S. government. And the politician he's chosen to front it all was J.D. Vance, his $15 million investment that ended up being the vice president. If Peter Thiel is building the friendliest face of the New World Order, Vance first entered public life with Hillbilly Elegy, a best-selling memoir turned Netflix documentary about his life in post-industrial Appalachia. But the book got framed as this kind of like Rosetta Stone for understanding Trump supporters, the white, culturally conservative working class. And at the time, Vance came off as thoughtful, measured, a guy who wanted to explain a complex world to a coastal elite that didn't get it. You got a Netflix movie, and for a while, people were talking about him like he was going to be a reasonable figure of the Republican Party. And then
They made a movie about J.D. Vance on Netflix? I didn't know that.
After hearing Thiel speak at Yale,
so totally propped up, astroturfed.
Vance decided to leave law and politics and go into venture capital. Thiel hired him into Mithri Capital, then funded his own firm, Naira Capital. And in 2022, Thiel dropped $15 million on Vance's Senate campaign, one of the largest political donations in modern U.S. history. And that money worked because Vance won his Senate seat, and he didn't forget who helped him get there. On the campaign trail for Trump's presidency, Vance's rhetoric began warning that America may need a strong executive who could temporarily suspend parts of the Constitution to restore order in Washington.
The thing you need to do, step one in the process, is to totally replace.
This was that conservative influencer that like turned out to be doing like gay porn or something like that?
Like rip out like a tumor the current American leadership class. Republicans, conservatives, we're still terrified of wielding power, of actually doing the job that the people sent us here to do.
You need a CEO, and an actual CEO is what's called a dictator.
But we've got to get comfortable with wielding power.
And with their Zionist dictator.
Dictator. If Americans want to change their government, they're going to have to get under the dictator phobia.
And then maybe most tellingly, he publicly praised Curtis Yarvin.
So one is like, you know, there's this guy Curtis Yarvin who's written about some of these things. And so one is to basically accept that this entire thing is going to fall in on itself, right? And so the task of conservatives right now is to preserve as much as can be preserved. And then when the inevitable collapse of the country comes, ensure that conservatives are able to sort of help build back the country in a way that's actually better, not Joe Biden's build back better, but actually some sort of reconstruction of the country.
J.D. Vance isn't a puppet. He's literally repeating Thiel's line. This is a man who is a front runner in the 2028 elections, and he is 100% on board with technocracy. Elon Musk acts as the cultural avatar of the new technocracy. He's the guy who makes dystopia look cool. Musk built his brand as this anti-establishment billionaire and the free speech warrior or space cowboy. He's this eccentric genius who is supposedly outmaneuvering the deep state to save the planet. But behind all the memes and the sycophantic fanboys, Musk has quietly positioned himself at the center of a very specific ideological project, not to challenge the system, but to replace it. Musk warned that automation would eliminate most jobs.
Fewer and fewer jobs that a robot cannot do better. What to do about mass unemployment? This is going to be a massive social challenge. And I think ultimately we will have to have some kind of universal basic income. I don't think we can have a choice.
Universal basic income.
Universal basic income. I think it's going to be necessary.
So it means that unemployed people will be paid across the globe.
Yeah.
Because there is no job. Machine, robot is taking over.
That's simply and I want to be clear that these are not things that I think that I wish would happen. These are simply things that I think probably will happen.
In a benign scenario, probably none of us will have a job. There will be, but in that benign scenario, there will be universal high income, not universal basic income, universal high income. There will be no shortage of goods or services.
All the things Alex Jones has been warning about for decades, but he's Elon's biggest cheerleader now. Imagine that. Who was telling you that Jones is helping to usher in the New World Order in the name of fighting the New World Order for 10 years now?
I think the benign scenario is the most likely scenario, probably, 80% likely to ask, in my opinion. The question will not be one of lacking goods or services. You'll have, everyone will have access to as much in the way of goods and services as they would like. The question will really be one of meaning. how, if the computer can do and the robots can do everything better than you, then what does your life have meaning? That's really will be the question in the benign scenario. And in the negative scenario, well, bets are off. We're in deep trouble. The country will have AIs or multiple AIs. So, and there will be a lot of robots.
There'll be a lot of robots. But we had
way more robots than people.
Yeah, let's have that conversation in a second, because people are concerned about, as you said, dwindling populations. AI and robots have potential to help support the GDP.
Yes.
Congratulations on Optimus 2 and soon Optimus 3. Your prediction on the number of robots by 2040, humanoid robots to be specific, what order of magnitude?
By 2040?
Yeah, so.
I think by if you say like 2040, probably there are more humanoid robots than there are people.
When people cheer on Musk, it's not because he's hiding it.
And that's not because there's going to be billions of robots, but because there's not going to be billions of people. You think they're going to keep billions of useless eaters, as they call them, around to give them a high universal basic income so they can sit around and scroll on X and watch Netflix all day? No.
It's because he's making it sound like progress. But under the surface, the vision's very clear. Automation replaces labor, AI replaces thinking, and the government itself, well, that becomes the Department of Government Efficiency run by Musk himself. In Trump's second term...
Yeah, we're going to have to end up banning AI and robotics like Dune. Dune nailed it. They're controlling us with prophecy, and the robotic AI takeover is going to lead to disaster. Guy's basically a prophet.
Musk now leads Doge, which under the surface is just a bureaucratically optimized initiative to remake the executive branch into Silicon Valley's image. But behind Musk, there's more than a dozen Palantir engineers, Theo Foundation fellows, and venture-funded operators who are now embedded in federal departments.
Yeah, we are seeing the likes of Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, and others.
And there's Alex Karp, Palantir, and both Elon and Peter Thiel were co-founders at PayPal, so they've been doing business together since the beginning.
They're media moguls. They're all gathered in one room to help build a foundation for bipartisan tech policy.
Zuckerberg too.
A group formed to create insights, understand the situation. Then you have proposed rulemaking. You'll get some objections from industry or whatever, and then ultimately you get sort of consensus on rulemaking.
Now, what's so notable here, of course, is that he says regulators should not just jump into the deep end, but of course, critics have been saying all along that is exactly what large companies have been doing. They are leaping in and releasing these models to the public, and in the process, basically sort of baking in all sorts of tendencies and patterns into AI at a time when we don't even really have a good way yet of understanding which writing on the internet is AI generated and which is human generated. So lots of criticisms of this at the same time that it was a rare opportunity to bring some of the top minds in AI to Capitol Hill to talk to lawmakers.
Yeah, can you stay on that point for just a minute, Jake?
You know Twitter and the internet is so botted. That's why all the kosher Christian anti-Semitism and Jesus shit is all botted to Kingdom Come and goes crazy viral. They want you on the Judeo plantation. They want you believing in prophecies of New World Order and Mark of the Beast and inevitable wars.
Because I think that criticism is really important, because sort of to put it another way, this is an AI regulation forum dominated by CEOs who realistically have very little interest in being regulated.
Musk doesn't need to cite the philosophy bros like Nick Land or Curtis Yarvin because he's literally acceleration in practice. He moves fast, breaks the system, and then we build something colder and cleaner and
self-driving cars
in its place.
AI doesn't have to be evil to destroy humanity. If AI has a goal and humanity just happens to be in the way, it will destroy humanity as a matter of course, without even thinking about it. No hard feelings. No hard feelings.
So he has no hard feelings too, is why that slow down, replay, slow down. No hard feelings. It's like crushing an ant.
It's just like if we're building a road and an anthill happens to be in the way, we don't hate ants. We're just building a road. And so goodbye anthill.
I mean, with artificial intelligence, we are summoning the demon. You know all those stories where there's the guy with the pentagram and the holy water, and he's like, yeah, you sure you can control the demon? Didn't work out.
Do you believe in God?
I don't believe in anything.
The huge irony of all of this is that when Klaus Schwab talks about the fourth industrial revolution, people panic. But when Musk says it, people line up for pre-orders and they cheer. Elon Musk is simply...
Zornder Edoms is wearing the shirt. Thank you, Edom. Says the entire Jewish mainstream alternative media is a honeypot. That's why X allowed anti-Semitism for a while to ID all their enemies. Just like 4chan. All the posts on 4chan were also coming from Israel as well.
Simply the update to the mask. Because once the robots are working and the algorithms are all thinking for you, the question isn't whether you're free, but if you're still necessary as a human being. All of these figures are behind Trump because he is the blunt force object that is clearing the way. He's not destroying the deep state. He is simply making room for a new one, a more private sector, AI augmented, tech funded, and ideologically streamlined version of the state. This isn't about bringing back 1950s America. It's about building a new kind of state, one that runs more like a tech startup. And for anyone who thinks that Trump is just too chaotic and too impulsive, too undisciplined to pull this off, you're right. Because he doesn't have to be the one running the machine, because the real power isn't in the Oval Office, it's in the network of billionaires and cloud servers and venture funds and machine learning algorithms and surveillance tools.
And this is how Trump got into office in the first place, like Israeli NSO Group and Cambridge Analytica and all these high-tech companies. That's why he's so popular.
They're all running the show. That's who's
running the show.
All of the Palantir operatives are here to stay, including J.D. Vance, who's next in line for the presidency in 2028. This is a systems update. And unless we resist with any sort of real labor or organizing or collective power, we're just going to keep spiraling into a techno-feudal, post-capitalist empire where human beings are just data points on a spreadsheet.
You know, you have the richest person in the world, Elon Musk, and a group of other billionaires, like Donald Trump, who is a billionaire, claiming that they are against elites. If you're not an elite, so what is an elite? Like the richest person in the world is not an elite. All these billionaires who are now running the US government, oh, they are not elites. Why?
Owned by, what is his name? Yuval Harari, what is his name? Good job, Big Mad Crab. Great video. Have to get you on, bro. Big Mad Crab. Learned about him pretty recently. Okay, a little more on the AI takeover, huh? Let's see. The Big Beautiful Bill? Let's hear. I've been hearing a lot about this big, beautiful bill that Trump's trying to pass. I haven't looked too far into it. Let's see here. It's probably the most terrifying legislation I've ever read. No state or political subdivision may enforce any law regulating AI or AI automated threat detection for 10 years, and it holds no liability for anything it does. Department of Commerce, AI systems, automated decision, automated threat detection. No state or political subdivision, therefore, may enforce any law or regulation regulating artificial intelligence. Oh, my God. They're trying to put it into law that we can't have any regulation on AI. Okay, so that's crazy. That's in this new bill. No regulation on any AI. I wonder who that benefits. Primary purpose is to remove legal impediments or facilitate the deployment or operation of artificial intelligence model, AI system, or automated decision. Does not impose civil liability. So no liability, no regulations. I'm sure that'll go real nice. If AI kills an American citizen, who is liable? What happens if you cannot pass any law to stop it for the next 10 years? What's going to stop it from... This is literally Terminator. This is like the Terminator plot. We need AI regulation to make sure we prevent AI regulation, right? Wow. 1984 shared a good thread on NSO Group and Trump getting into office and how that was all a bunch of high-tech bullshit, too.